Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Overwatch Weekly. Not a ton of stuff to talk about this week, but there was a dev update this week, which is what I'm going to focus the majority of today's video on. But before we get to that, let's talk about some other things as well. The first thing is that there are some new patch notes. This is for the experimental mode, or the experimental card, that you will find in-game. And it is some balance updates, mostly to support heroes, but also to a couple of damage heroes as well. Ana's biotic rifle healing was reduced from 75 to 70, so a slight nerf there. Bastion had a decent number of changes. His configuration sentry spread was decreased by 10%, and his shots until max spread reduction lowered from 60 to 40. And his self-repair resource drain rate was increased by 20%, but his healing per second was increased from 75 to 90. For Junkrat, his frag launcher projectiles maintain slightly more velocity on Ricochet. His concussion mine projectile speed increased from 20 to 25, and the Ricochet distance off of enemy players was greatly reduced. And Total Mayhem's bomb detonation time reduced from 1 second to 0.7, and the spread increased by 50%. That's an interesting change. I didn't really... Maybe I'm just dumb. I never really thought Junkrat was in a bad spot, especially with like his concussion mines. But I guess he wasn't really getting played in a ton of situations. He wasn't getting... It wasn't like he wasn't getting played at all, but I could see why they made this change. I've always had a really bad relationship with Junkrat. I never liked Junkrat. I always hated going up against Junkrat, but I don't really care that much anymore, so I don't really mind this change, but I am a little confused by it. Hopefully someone can explain this change a little more to me, someone who maybe is at a higher level and understands Junkrat's weakness, or, potential weakness more than I do. Moving on, Mercy. Her Caduceus staff healing per second was increased from 50 to 55. Mercy got her buff, everybody. We did it. Mercy buff, finally. It's a pretty good buff. I think she needed it. Her healing was pretty bad. It's still not incredible, but it is what it is. I think it's still pretty good, so not going to complain about that. Moira, this is an interesting change. Her biotic orb damage radius was reduced from 5 to 4 meters. The projectile speed was increased from 16 to 20, but the duration was reduced from 10 to 7. Overall, I would say that these are nerfs to Moira. The projectile speed increase is interesting because in a way it's both a buff and a nerf. If you throw the orb, right, it's going to get to the enemies quicker. But the duration itself decreased, so to kind of make up for that, the speed increases. But also, and I don't know if the biotic orb is only the damage one. I can never remember. It always kind of confuses me. But think of it this way. If you throw it and it goes quicker, right, you have less damage radius, which means you're probably not going to hit as many things with your damage orb. And unless you put it in perfectly, it's not going to spend as much time doing damage because it's going to go through them quicker. So, that is interesting. I don't know if the speed of it has changed at all when it's tethered. I would assume probably not. We don't have anything saying that it did change, so maybe it didn't change at all when it's connected, but it's just to make up for the change in the duration of the ability, so it's not that weird. It's a weird change in that regard. It's an interesting change to see. And I'm curious to see what it's like with the healing aspect of it, because it will go faster, but it'll also go past your team quicker if it's not attached. So I'm intrigued. Final balance change is Zenyatta's Orb of Discord damage amplification was increased from 25% to 30% once again, making him a little more valuable. I think that's a good change. Zenyatta's in in an interesting spot, because the reason why Zenyatta's not that good is more so because shields are very prominent. If barriers were reduced a bit, he would be better. But this is a good change, help you kind of break through tanks and whatnot. So that's a reversion of a previous nerf, I believe. So that's a good change. Next story, I'm not going to talk too much about this one because it is spoilery. So if you don't want any spoilers at all, I would recommend not going to the story. But there was a leak, some patch note leaks by the Blizzard team for the patch 1.48, which comes out next week, May 19th, and it is going to bring in the anniversary event for 2020, as well as some new skins. So the leaked patch notes reveal some of the names of some of these skins. We don't have any images for them. I won't tell you who gets skins or what they are. If you want to see what they are, link in the description of the tweet. But I do want to say that patch 1.48 is a rebase and will require a relatively large download for all platforms. This is something that happens every so often when a big update comes around. They kind of use it to add content for the future in a lot of ways, or change things up so that it works. So this happened last time I know it happened was Archives 2018. I'm pretty sure it's happened since then. The last time I remember it for sure happening was Archives 2018. But you can check that out if you want to see it. Make some room for the game to need an update, because it is a bigger update than usual, and that is going to be coming next Tuesday. There's a little secret story linked in the description, or a little secret thing linked in the description. You want to check that out. It's an Overwatch tweet, but I felt like I would make that little secret thing. But let's talk about this dev update, because in it, Jeff touches on a number of things, including the experimental mode patches that I just talked about, and the changes to the hero pools that I talked about last week. I think it was last week. Last week, the week before that. I don't remember exactly. I think it was last week. But the main thing he was talking about were some changes coming to competitive. Before I talk about that, I want to just briefly touch on the fact that we have gotten 2 dev updates this month. And that is crazy. And we had gone so long, and we had periods of time where we had no dev updates whatsoever, to now we're getting 2 in 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. That's pretty good. We don't normally get dev updates that frequently. And it's interesting. We're in a time where I guess they have time to make more dev updates because they're working remotely. I'd expect them to have, I would imagine that they're getting less work done working remotely, but maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe they're getting just, about as much work done now as they were before. But I'm happy to see more dev updates. I always love getting dev updates. I love hearing from Jeff on what's going on with the game. But I want to talk about the main thing that the dev update talked about, which was competitive open queue. Now, this is a mode that has been in the arcade now for a few weeks. And I have not tried it out at all because I don't personally care about open queue. I really like 222 roll lock. Makes the game more enjoyable for me. I hated Overwatch for a period of time when I was just going into matches, whether it be quick play or competitive, didn't really matter. And I was basically stuck running solo healer or solo tank, and it was awful. It was 4 to 5 DPS every game, and I was stuck on either Moira, who I don't mind playing Moira, but you can only do so much when you're playing Moira trying to heal your whole team, or I was stuck playing Mercy or whatnot, or if I was playing tank, what solo tank can you really play? I mean, you can try to play like a Ryan or a Winston. I played a lot of Wrecking Ball because at that point in time, you're just running 5 DPS, like everything's chaos anyway, so you may as well feed into it anyway. So I personally, as someone who doesn't normally play DPS, as someone who normally plays support or tank, it's much more enjoyable for me to just get into a game and know that I'm going to have one other support with me or one other tank with me, and know that I'm going to have 2 tanks or 2 supports in general. So even if I do decide to play damage, which I don't get super long queue times because I'm not at a point where that's really an issue rank-wise. I know at least like, I'm going to get into a game and I'm going to have 2 tanks, 2 supports backing me up. So I like roll queue, and I really think that it was a good change that was needed because it got to a point where the game was just not being played the way that it was intended, which sparks up a whole nother discussion of should the devs really be forcing people to play the game a certain way if people don't want to play the game that way. But I think ultimately adding roll queue was good for the game, other than the really bad queue times. Now, with competitive open queue, you have the ability, if you so choose, to just go and play whatever you want. You can play goats if you want. You can play triple tank, triple support. You can play sextuple DPS, whatever you want. And you can do it in a competitive setting, so you can build comps around that. And the news that comes out of this dev update is that competitive open queue is going to become a normal mode in competitive. And I really personally like that change. And I've seen some mixed responses. I know some people have talked about not enjoying it. Some people have said that they don't like the idea of splitting the player base between 2 different queues. I ultimately think it's a better change because I think what you're going to get is people who want to play more seriously, who want to play in the more competitive mode, if you will, the Overwatch League style of mode, the official, I guess, kind of competitive mode, though they will both be official, right? The people who want to play the more serious way are going to play in 2-2-2, right? People who just want to go on and play DPS heroes or play whatever the hell they want, where they don't really care what it is they're playing. They want to be able to play the Tracer and then switch to Brig and then switch to Ball and, have fun and chaotic play and not have to worry really about having these ridiculously long queue times on damage. I think they're going to go over to the open queue. And I think it's just going to make the game better, right? You have more options now in competitive, right? Do you want to play 2-2-2? Do you want to play open queue? How do you want to play it? And you'll get to see more interesting things come out of that. And I think ultimately this is a good step forward. I think what we're going to see potentially is a lot of things, change in terms of how the game is balanced, which could be an issue. Discussions about whether or not 2-2-2 should actually still exist anyway, which is a whole nother discussion that I won't get involved in now. But Jeff brings up in the dev update something along the lines of open queue was the 2nd most popular mode in Korea. Now, these stats are something that he's pulled up in the past. He's mentioned them in the past about them kind of globally, how they've looked, and it was about the same in other regions as well, where they were also, it was like 2nd or 3rd highest. But competitive, normal competitive was always the highest. Now, some people may not just know about the actual existence of the different I don't know how to say it. Some people might just not know about the fact that there is an arcade mode that had it, and I think it was very interesting to look at these numbers. So I'm pulling them up a little bit. So if you go to a post, which I'll link in the description, this is from April 16th, so it's about a month old now. So I'm sure that it's a little outdated, but Jeff included some pictures, or a picture, where he showed kind of the popularity of the different games and the different modes. So in North America, Europe, Korea, and China, as well as on PlayStation and Xbox, competitive is the most popular game mode by far. On Switch, it's Quick Play, which doesn't really, it's not that weird. Specifically, Quick Play Roll Queue, not the Quick Play Classic. In North America, Europe, China, and on PlayStation and Xbox, Quick Play Roll Queue is 2nd most popular. On the Switch, it's competitive, And in Korea, as I said, it's the ranked open queue as the second most popular mode. So I think that this is going to be something interesting to look at. In North America, for example, ranked open queue was 5th most popular. In Europe, it was 3rd. In China, it was 4th. On PlayStation and Xbox, it was 3rd. On Switch, it was like 5th as well. So it doesn't seem like it's as popular as 222, but that was also a month-old image, as well as something where people may not have known that it was existing, right? So I think it'll be good to see how things change when it actually gets added. Now, it's not going to be added to competitive until July. That is what Jeff says in the video. When Season 23 rolls around is when we can expect to see it. But I think it's a very interesting thing to talk about. I personally really like this change because I think that separating the queues isn't inherently a bad thing, because I think it's going to help some of the congestion that people have, right? Some people want to play comp, they want to play where they have a rank, but they don't necessarily want to play 222. They just want to play Overwatch competitive, and they want to be able to play with the flexibility that they as a player have, right? Like, I as a player really like the idea of flexibility, right? It is one of the things that I do miss about having role queue. I liked being able to be playing Doomfist, for example, or Wrecking Ball or whatever, and we're getting beaten down by a Tracer or a Sombra or something and saying, I need to switch to Brig to try to counter this dive that's going on, to try to help my team out a little more, because we're right now struggling to go against this. And even if it was only like a temporary thing that I did, it gave me the ability to switch, and I liked doing that because I felt that it was a good way to kind of be a flexible player. And that's obviously gone with 222. Now I think you will help some of the congestion in the queue by separating it where people are playing more of other modes. And it was a very popular thing. People on the forums were like, please keep Classic Comp, right? You have Quick Play Classic. Let us keep Comp Classic. And that's exactly what they're doing. I think it will help queue times. It'll relieve some congestion. Because think of it this way, right? If it doesn't relieve queue times on 222, well, then that means that there's probably pretty open queues on Classic. And Classic's wait time should be pretty short, seeing as you just go in and then you just kind of lock in whoever you want to play. And it allows you to switch more. It gives you a little more counterplay in that regard. So I do think that it is something that will go into effect and will impact the game in a positive way. So I'm excited to see what it is that it does. But I personally really like the addition of having both of them. It doesn't impact me at all because I'm going to keep playing 222. And maybe I'll play some open queue as well, just ranking them both to see if I can get my rank up a little bit. Now that it's been so long without it, maybe, try it out a little bit, see how I like it. But I do think that it is overall a good change, and I'm very happy that they made the change. Jeff also mentioned, I should say, that it is going to go down, if it's not down already, I haven't checked. It's going to go away from arcade, and it'll come back for like a brief season back in the middle of June. So I assume after Archives is over, it'll come back. So that's just something to take note of if that interests you. But yeah, that's the big thing is competitive open queue. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it staying a consistent part of competitive going forward. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that in the comments down below. But I'm going to end this video off here. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing for more content like this in the future. Hope you're all staying safe and staying indoors. And thank you once again. So, yeah, I'm going to get out of here. Yeah. Bye-bye.